Tonight, let me tell you about a job that promised honour and destroyed your liver. The Ale Conor was supposed to be a guardian of public health, a protector of quality, chosen from the finest brewing families to ensure every Londoner drank safe, wholesome ale. In reality, it was a medieval shakedown operation with a badge, a position where your professional qualifications were measured by your willingness to look the other way, your capacity for daily drinking, and your tolerance for watching desperate people lose everything while their children watched from doorways. This is the story of what it actually meant to be an Ale Conor in medieval London, how a brewer's son inherited his father's dream and watched it rot like grain left too long in water, how integrity dissolved like sugar in bad ale, how the system that promised standards delivered only corruption and taught you to call it duty. If you appreciate history with the rose-coloured glasses ripped off and stomped into the mud, consider subscribing and dropping a comment with where you're listening from. Now take a slow, deep breath, settle into your coziest spot, let the world outside fade away as we journey back to 1342, to a dim London kitchen where judgment comes down to one strange test. Every medieval profession had its nobility, or so the stories claimed. Ale Conors were supposedly guardians of quality, protectors of public health, chosen from the finest brewing families, trained by master craftsmen. They ensured every citizen drank safe, wholesome ale. The leather breeches were meant to be a badge of honour. Your judgment would protect the innocent from unscrupulous brewers who might water their ale or use inferior grain. In the stories, Ale Conors were respected, welcomed. Their arrival meant justice, standards, the maintenance of ancient traditions that kept English ale the finest in Christendom. But here's what actually happened. Your father died in the autumn of 1339. The leaves had turned the same amber as the ale he'd spent his life perfecting. Clear, honest. The last good thing you'd ever taste without tasting the lie beneath it. The cough started small. Every brewer developed it. Steam and malt dust settling in the lungs year after year. But your father's cough grew different. Wet, rattling. It echoed through your childhood home like a death sentence. Read out one syllable at a time. You'd lie awake counting the seconds between his breaths, wondering which would be the last. He lasted 3 years longer than anyone expected, driven by love for his craft and the desperate need to teach you everything before the knowledge died with him. The brewery was modest but respected. 3 copper kettles inherited from his father, polished until they caught firelight like molten gold. The mash tun where you'd learn to test temperature with your bare hand. The smell of grain and yeast that meant home more than any building ever could. Your father's ale had a reputation. Brewers from Cheapside to Suffolk knew his work. That clear amber that trapped sunlight. Sweet with malt but sharp with yarrow. Preserved with bog myrtle the way his father taught him. No shortcuts, no compromises, just honest work for honest pay. He'd pour cups and watch your face as you drank, reading your reactions like a priest reads scripture, making you describe what you tasted, not what you thought you should taste, but what was actually there, the initial sweetness, the way good ale felt, full but not heavy, warming but not burning, the aftertaste that lingered, inviting another sip. During those final lessons, his breathing laboured, hands shaking as he held the cup. He'd explain his philosophy. Anyone could make ale, every housewife in London brewed, but making good ale required knowledge, care, and something else. He'd pause, searching through the pain and laudanum fog for the right word. Integrity, he'd finally say. You had to care about it being right, even when no one was watching, especially then. You didn't understand. Not at 17, still young enough to think integrity was something that lasted, that mattered. That couldn't be bargained away for a handful of silver pennies. Your father died on a Tuesday. The priest came, said the words that were supposed to matter. collected his fee. Your mother wept silently, the kind of crying that comes from knowing you'll never stop. You stood at the graveside in your best wool tunic. The one dyed with good madder, not cheap weld that would fade in a season. You watched them lower the man who taught you everything into earth that smelled of rain and rot. And you made a promise to that turned earth, to the October rain. You'd make him proud. Use what he taught you. Be the kind of man who did things right, who couldn't be bought, who understood that quality mattered more than profit. The rain that day tasted clean. You'd remember that later, when nothing tasted clean anymore, when every cup carried the flavour of compromise, and every swallow felt like drowning. The guild system was supposed to protect craftsmen and consumers alike. Master brewers would recognise talent, nurture it, elevate the worthy to positions of responsibility. When Edmund approached you after your father's funeral, it should have been recognition of your family's reputation. The guild had observed your training, your dedication. They were offering you a chance to serve the community, to ensure every Londoner drank wholesome ale at fair prices. The leather jerkin of an ale conner was meant to signify authority, respect, a lifetime appointment with steady wages and the gratitude of honest brewers. That's what it was supposed to mean. The position actually opened 3 months after your father's death. Edmund, the master ale conner for your ward, found you after guild mass one Sunday. The church smelled of incense and damp stone, the kind of cold that settled into your bones and wouldn't leave. Edmund smelled worse, old ale, sweat, and something indefinable. You'd later recognise it as corruption given human form. He spoke of your father, called him a good man, said he'd heard you'd been taught proper. His voice carried the rasp of a professional drinker, each word swimming in phlegm. You nodded, uncomfortable under his gaze. Edmund's eyes were yellowed at the corners, bloodshot, set in a face gone soft and puffy the way faces go when ale replaces food as primary sustenance. His jerkin, the official leather garment of an ale conner, was stained and worn, cracked at the shoulders, speaking of years of service and complete absence of care. The guild needed a new conner for the southern parishes, he explained. The work was steady, the pay was adequate. He paused there. A knowing smile crossed his slack features. If you know what you're about, he added. The meeting came a week later. The guild hall near Cheapside, grand, imposing, reeking of power. Tapestries on the walls showed brewing scenes that bore no resemblance to actual brewing. Noble men raising chalices, no steam, no grain dust, no coughing brewers dying by degrees. Richard, the guild master, looked you over like livestock at Smithfield Market. He shuffled papers while speaking of your father's reputation. Honest man, good brewer, never any complaints. Then came the pivot. Brewing and judging brewing were different beasts, he explained. The position required discretion, understanding, a sense of proportion. The assize of ale was law, he reminded you. Had been since 1267. Every home that hung an ale stake must submit to inspection, meet standards, maintain good relations with the guild. What he didn't say, what would take you months to understand, was simpler. Pay us, or we'll destroy you. But that morning, you only heard opportunity. Your mother needed support. Your sisters needed dowries. The brewery couldn't function without your father's skill. This position meant survival. Edmund would train you, they said. Show you the work, teach you the forms, the Latin phrases, the proper procedures. He knew the work well. Oh, you learned. Edmund taught you everything. How to taste ale with the back of your tongue where bitterness hides. How to write reports in Latin you barely understood. How to recognize bribes without them being offered. How to destroy lives with a single stroke of your pen. Your father taught you integrity. Edmund taught you survival. Guess which lesson proved more useful? Master Conners were supposed to be teachers, mentors, guardians of ancient knowledge. They would pass down centuries of wisdom about fermentation, ingredients, proper brewing temperatures. Under their guidance, apprentice Connors would learn to detect the slightest impurity, the smallest deviation from standard. It was meant to be almost mystical, the way experienced tongues could taste corruption where others found only ale. The leather breeches test itself was supposed to be ingenious, scientific. Sugar content in improperly brewed ale would create that telltale stickiness. One simple test protecting thousands from inferior product. But your education took a different turn entirely. Your first inspection with Edmund was a widow in Southwark. March morning, 1340. The kind of spring day where winter hadn't quite let go. Thames fog thick enough to taste. Rot and salt and things best not examined closely. Edmund walked like each step hurt, which it probably did. 20 years of professional drinking leaves marks deeper than scars. First lesson, he wheezed as you crossed London Bridge. Nobody wants you there. The widow's name was Margaret. She'd been brewing since before you were born. Her husband died in the French wars. Cressy or some other glorious waste of English lives. Left her with 3 children and a talent for making ale that didn't kill people. A survival skill in medieval London. Her ale stake hung crooked from the second story. The traditional signal that fresh ale was ready. Also a flag that said, "Come rob me legally." Edmund didn't knock. Connors didn't knock. Authority doesn't request entry. It takes it. The kitchen was clean, cleaner than most. Margaret stood by her brewing kettle like a soldier at post. She'd been expecting this. They always were. Word travelled fast when Connors walked. Edmund made a show of examining the equipment, peering into vessels, sniffing the air like a hound, all performance. He hadn't looked at brewing equipment with honest eyes in a decade. Then came the tasting. Margaret's ale was good. Your father's training told you that immediately. Well fermented, proper strength. The kind of honest ale that kept London functioning despite Thames water that could kill you in a week. Edmund drank, swirled it in his mouth with theatrical consideration, spat it into the fire. A gesture meant to show serious evaluation, as if he could still taste anything through the coating of 20 years' worth of bribes. Weak, he pronounced. Under-fermented, taste of bad water. It didn't. You knew it didn't. Margaret knew it didn't. Edmund knew it didn't. But Edmund had the leather jerkin, the tipstaff, the authority to destroy her with 3 Latin words, non est bonum, not good enough. Margaret reached for her purse. No words exchanged, just the clink of coins. 2 silver pennies sliding across scarred wood. Edmund's hand covered them, made them disappear. Better, he said, tasting again from the same cup. Marginal, but acceptable. Outside, walking back through Southwark's narrow streets. Edmund explained your real education. The ale was fine, he said. Usually is. But fine doesn't pay for your mother's bread, or your sister's dowries, or the guild's protection. You started to protest, something about standards, quality, your father's teachings. Edmund stopped, turned. For the first time, you saw something almost like pity in those yellowed eyes. Your father was a good man, he said, and that's why he died poor. You want to be a good man, or you want to eat? The leather breeches test came later. 3rd inspection, a young alewife, nervous, new to the trade. Edmund made you perform it, sat you down on her bench in those expensive leather breeches the guild required you to purchase, made you wait the full prescribed time while she watched, trembling. The leather stuck. Of course it stuck. Leather sticks to everything when ale dries on it. The test proved nothing except that liquids dry sticky. But it gave you power, the appearance of ancient wisdom, scientific authority. Failed, Edmund told her, though you both knew the test was meaningless. But perhaps reconsideration might be possible. She paid. They always paid. What choice did they have? That night, you tried to wash the leather breeches, scrubbed until your hands went raw. The ale came off, the sticky residue dissolved in hot water and lye. The stain on your conscience proved more permanent. Your training took 6 months. You learned the forms. 6 different ways to write failed in Latin. You learned the roots, which brewers paid promptly, which needed pressure, which were under guild protection. You learned the taste, not of good ale versus bad, but of compliance versus resistance. Edmund's final lesson came in August. A brewer in Cheapside who'd refused payment for 3 inspections running. Edmund brought you along to observe advanced techniques. The brewer was young, stubborn, made excellent ale and knew it. Edmund failed him anyway. When the brewer protested, demanded guild hearing. Edmund smiled, pulled out a sealed parchment. The brewer's name was already on the exclusion list. Had been for weeks. No one would buy from him. No tavern would stock his ale. His brewing days were over. Could have just paid, Edmund observed as they walked away. Behind them, you heard the sound of breaking. Copper kettles being destroyed. A life's work becoming scrap metal. Everyone pays eventually. Just a question of how much. You graduated the next week, given your own ward, your own leather jerkin, fresh, unstained, your own tipstaff of office, your own list of brewers to inspect, to rob. Call it what it was. Your mother was proud. Your sisters had new dresses. Food appeared on the table. Meat twice a week now. The price of your education. That first night as a full conner, you dreamed of your father. He was trying to teach you something about ale, about integrity. But his words came out as coins, silver pennies falling from his mouth instead of wisdom. Covering the floor, rising like floodwater, you woke choking and ran to the window, threw up into the street below. It tasted like compromise. An Ale Connor's day should have been filled with purpose. Dawn prayers, then out into London streets to ensure public health. At each stop, careful examination of brewing conditions, scientific testing of alcohol content, detailed records kept in Latin, preserving centuries of brewing knowledge. In the ideal world, brewers would welcome these inspections, proud to display their craft, eager for the official seal that marked quality ale. The Connor's judgment was supposed to mean safety for thousands. One bad batch could poison a parish. Your vigilance would stand between London and disaster. Instead, your days actually began before dawn, not with prayers, but with the need to vomit. Professional drinking leaves its marks, and morning came like a fist to the stomach. Every day, without fail, you'd stumble to the window, retch into the street, wash your mouth with small ale, the only water safe to drink in London. The same substance that was killing you kept you alive. Medieval irony at its finest. First inspection by 6. You learned to start early, catch brewers before they could hide the evidence. Of what? Didn't matter. There was always something to find if you looked hard enough, or if you needed to find it. Today started in Cordwainer Street. 7 brewers on your list, each name annotated in Edmund's careful hand. Pays prompt, needs pressure, guild protected, touch not. The first was Alice, middle-aged, steady, been brewing since her husband died of the sweat 10 years back. Her ale was consistent, nothing special, nothing wrong, the kind that kept London running. She had the coins ready on the table, didn't even wait for the pretense of testing. Smart woman, saved you both time. Morning, Alice. Connor. 2 pennies. The standard rate. You pocketed them, made a mark in your ledger. Clean transaction, no fuss, the best kind. The second stop required more theatre, new brewer. Young man. Thought he knew better. Made you perform the full ritual. Visual inspection of premises. You peered into corners, frowned at nothing. Equipment examination. You tapped barrels. Listened for sounds only you could hear. Then the tasting. By your 3rd month, you could identify 30 different ales by taste alone. Not because they were different. Most were virtually identical. But because you drunk them so many times, you knew each brewer's particular variation on mediocrity. This one was actually good. Better than good. The boy had talent. Insufficient fermentation, you lied smoothly. Traces of wild yeast. Possible contamination. His face went white. Started to stammer about his process. You held up a hand, patted your purse suggestively. He paid. They always paid. What choice did he have? By noon, you'd collected 12 pennies, tested 9 ales, actually drunk about half. The rest went into fires or onto floors when brewers weren't watching. Even so, by midday you were half drunk. The job required it. How else could you face what you'd become? Lunch at the Boar's Head, the tavern where Connors gathered, where Edmund held court like a bloated king of corruption. 7 of you around a scarred table, comparing notes, not on ale quality, on payment rates. Widow Marjorie's getting uppity, one reported. Only paid half rate, claimed poor sales. Failed her, Edmund advised through a mouthful of capon. Let her stew a week. She'll pay double next time. You ate in silence. The food was good. You could afford good food now. But it all tasted like ash, like betrayal, like the coins in your purse, heavy as millstones. Afternoon brought the harder cases, the ones who genuinely couldn't pay. Old women brewing to survive. Crippled soldiers making ale with their pension money. The desperate, the dying. You learn to steel yourself, to look at their empty purses and fail them anyway. The guild demanded its cut. Your family needed food. Someone would suffer. Why should it be you? But their faces stayed with you, accumulated, layered like sediment at the bottom of a cup. By evening, your purse was heavy, your conscience heavier. 23 inspections, 19 payments, 4 failures that would mean starvation for someone. Just another day's work. The worst part? The ale. By day's end, you'd tasted enough to fill a barrel. Your stomach rebelled, your head pounded. Your liver screamed protests your brain had learned to ignore. You'd swear to drink less tomorrow, taste and spit, like Edmund taught you. But tomorrow would bring the same needs, the same threats, the same necessity to drown what you'd become in the very substance that defined your corruption. Home meant your mother's grateful smile, your sister's chatter about their days, normal life purchased with abnormal means. They never asked about the work, never questioned where the money came from. They knew better than to ask. Dinner was rich stew, good bread, small ale. Because even at home, your water could kill you. You ate mechanically, responded to questions with grunts, excused yourself early, in your room. You counted the day's take, separated the guild's portion from yours, recorded the failures in your official ledger. The Latin phrases flowed easily now. Insufficient quality, failed standard measures, contamination suspected. Lies came easier in dead languages. Before bed, you'd try to pray, but the words stuck in your throat like bad ale. What was the point? God saw everything, knew every coin taken, every life ruined, every betrayal of your father's memory. If he cared, he gave no sign. You'd fall asleep eventually, drunk on the day's tastings, exhausted by the weight of what you'd become, dreaming of clear amber ale that caught sunlight and held it. Tomorrow would bring more of the same, and the day after that, until you couldn't remember any other way to live, until you became Edmund, training the next generation, teaching them that survival mattered more than integrity. Your father's lesson, reversed. Medieval justice was meant to be harsh but fair. Those who failed inspection supposedly deserved their fate. Brewers who cut corners, used bad grain, endangered public health. The guild system was designed to protect honest craftsmen from unscrupulous competition. When businesses failed, it was simply market forces at work. Natural selection in the marketplace. The Elconners were supposed to be instruments of necessary regulation. Neutral, impartial, just. But justice wore a different face when you held the power to destroy lives with a stroke of your pen. Her name was Isabel. You'd remember that until your last day. November 1341. First winter as a full Connor. The kind of cold that made your teeth ache and your leather jerkin stiff as armour. She had 3 children. Husband dead 2 months. Fell from scaffolding at the cathedral. Construction paid better than most work. Also killed you faster. She'd started brewing to survive. No training, no capital. Just desperation and a borrowed kettle. The ale was terrible. You didn't need your father's training to know that. Weak. Sour. Barely fermented. But it was all she had. All that stood between her family and starvation. Please, she said. One word, soft as snow. Her children watched from the doorway. The eldest, maybe 8. Old enough to understand hunger. Young enough to still hope. You had a choice. You always had a choice. That's what made it worse. You failed her. Had to. The guild had quotas. Edmund reviewed your reports. Too much leniency and you'd face questions. Reviews, possible replacement. And then what would happen to your family? But you saw her face crumple. Saw the eldest child's expression shift from hope to something harder. Saw the middle child start to cry without understanding why. 3 days, you heard yourself say, to improve the quality. I'll return for re-inspection. It was more than Edmund would approve. Less than mercy. The worst kind of compromise. Enough to feel like you'd tried. Not enough to actually help. You returned in 3 days. The house was empty. Neighbours said they'd gone in the night. Where? Nobody knew. Nobody asked. London swallowed the desperate without chewing. That was Tuesday. Wednesday brought Thomas the veteran. Lost his left arm at Cressy. Same battle that made so many widows. Learned to brew one-handed. Made decent ale, considering. But decent didn't excuse debt. 6 months behind on guild dues. I served the king, he said, showing the stump. 20 years. This is what I got for it. You failed him anyway. Orders were orders. His brewing equipment went to guild auction that Saturday. You saw him once more. Begging near Cheapside. Didn't acknowledge each other. Professional courtesy. Thursday was the Godfrey family. Father, mother. 4 sons. All brewers. All behind on payments. The father tried to bargain. Offered half payment, promised the rest next month. You knew he was lying. He knew you knew. Everyone knew everyone was lying. The whole system ran on lies told with straight faces. You failed all 4 sons. Let the father pass. Edmund's instructions were clear. Leave the patriarch to watch his legacy crumble. More effective than total destruction. The guild understood psychology. Friday brought Marie, French immigrant, made ale with techniques from Normandy. Different, but good. Too good. Local brewers had complained. She was taking their custom with her foreign ways. She offered triple the standard bribe, showed you a purse heavy with silver, explained in broken English how well her ale sold, how she could pay anything at all. It's not about the money, you told her. First truth you'd spoken all week. Her brewing license was revoked. Foreign techniques deemed against guild standards. She left London within the month, back to France, where at least the corruption spoke her language. The weekend brought no rest. Feast day inspections paid double. Holy days meant more drinking, more chances to find violations. You worked from dawn until your legs wouldn't carry you. Tasted until your tongue went numb. Collected bribes until your purse split from the weight. Sunday Mass found you in the back row, trying not to vomit from Saturday's excess. The priest spoke of mercy, of charity, of loving thy neighbour. You counted coins in your head to drown him out. After Mass, confession. You hadn't been in months, but something about Isabel's empty house drew you to the booth. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. Where to begin? The bribes. The false reports, the families destroyed, the trust betrayed, the father's memory dishonoured. I take things, you said finally. Things that aren't mine. Stealing is a grave sin, my son. You must return what you've taken. Return it? To whom? To Isabel, wherever hunger had driven her. To Thomas, begging with one arm. To the French woman so fled back across the channel. I can't, you said. Then you must truly repent. Sin no more. Make restitution where possible. You left without absolution. What was the point? Monday would bring more inspections, more bribes, more Isabels and Thomases and Maries. The wheel would turn, grinding faces into flour for the guild's bread. That night, you tried to calculate. 3 years as a conner, perhaps 2,000 inspections. How many failures? How many bribes? How many lives altered, ruined, ended? The numbers blurred. Math couldn't contain the weight. But their faces remained clear. Everyone. Isabel's desperation, Thomas's dignity, Marie's confusion, the Godfrey boy's rage, accumulated in your memory like coins in a miser's chest. Except coins could be spent. These faces were yours forever. Your mother noticed your mood, asked if you were ill. You said yes, easier than explaining you were sick of soul, not body. That every taste of ale now carried the flavour of someone's ruin. She made you broth, fussed over you, grateful for the son who provided so well, who'd risen above his station, who'd made his father proud. You ate the broth, smiled at her care, played the part of the good son. What else could you do? Tell her that her comfort was purchased with others' misery? That every coin in the household was tainted? She deserved her illusions. Someone should. That night, sleep wouldn't come. You lay in the dark, counting faces instead of sheep. Each one had trusted the system, believed in justice, thought that quality mattered more than payment. You'd taught them otherwise, lesson by bitter lesson. Tomorrow would bring new faces, new desperation, new choices that weren't really choices. The wheel would turn, the guild would feed, the ale would flow, and you'd taste it all. Drowning in other people's livelihoods while your family thrived. Your father wanted you to have authority, respect, position. Congratulations, Dad. Mission accomplished. Alconners who showed weakness were supposedly removed for the greater good. The guild would maintain standards through careful selection and oversight. Those who couldn't perform their duties, whether through incompetence, corruption, or simple human frailty, would be replaced by worthier candidates. The system was designed to self-correct, evolve, improve. Justice might be blind, but it could see well enough to spot a failed servant. At least, that's how it was supposed to work. The tremor started in your left hand. Spring of 1342. Just a small shake at first. Easy to blame on cold mornings or too much tasting the night before, but it spread, like the corruption that caused it. By summer, both hands shook. You learned to hide it, kept them in your pockets during inspections, gripped your tipstaff white-knuckle tight. But brewers noticed. They always noticed weakness. Connor's got the shakes, they whispered. Won't last the year. The official diagnosis was palsy. But you knew better. 20 years of tasting ale, not drinking, that would be unprofessional, had pickled your liver. 3 years of your own career had finished the job Edmund started. Your body was failing, but worse. Your authority was crumbling. The bribes came slower, smaller. Brewers sensed the power shifting, the way animals sense storms. Why pay full rate to a dying conner? Why fear someone who could barely hold a cup? August brought the first refusal. Young brewer in Cordwainer Street looked you in the eye and said no. Simple as that. Number. You threatened guild action. He laughed. Actually laughed. Look at you, he said. Can't even hold your staff steady. Think the guild backs broken tools? You failed him. Of course. Wrote the report with shaking hands, but nothing happened. His ale stake stayed up. His customers kept coming. Your report might as well have been written in water. The guild had already decided. You just hadn't been told yet. Edmund came to see you in September, struggled up your stairs, wheezing like a broken bellows. 23 years of professional drinking had made him a preview of your future, if you had one. Time to train your replacement, he said without preamble. Guilds decided. You weren't surprised, couldn't even muster anger. Just nodded, hands hidden in your lap. Who? Richard's boy, young William. Keen, ambitious. Edmund smiled, showing teeth like old cheese. Reminds me of you, actually. 3 years ago, training William was like watching your own corruption in reverse. He started eager, righteous, full of words about standards and quality. You taught him the truth, just as Edmund had taught you. Watched his idealism curdle like bad milk. But the ale was good, he protested after the third inspection. Why did we fail her? Check the ledger, you told him. See the mark next to her name? She's behind on dues. Then the ale wasn't good. Simple as that. His face went through the same expressions yours once had. Confusion, realization, disgust. Then, finally, acceptance. Because what else was there? October was your last month. The guild let you keep working. Professional courtesy. But everyone knew. Brewers paid half rate or nothing. Some offered charity coins, which was worse than refusal. You took them anyway. Pride was a luxury you couldn't afford. The worst part? Your family still needed the money. Your mother's health had declined. Your sister's dowries were half paid. Stopping wasn't an option, even as your body screamed for mercy. So you continued the rounds, shaking hands, trying to hold cups steady, lying about quality you could no longer taste. Your tongue burned dead by 3 years of constant ale. Writing reports that nobody would read, a ghost haunting your own life. The last inspection was where it all started. Margaret in Southwark, the widow Edmund had used for your first lesson. She was older now, greyer, but still brewing, still surviving. She didn't offer a bribe, didn't need to, just poured you a cup of ale and watched you try to drink it. Most spilled down your jerkin, the same stained leather you'd worn for 3 years. Your father was a good man, she said quietly. Heard you tried to be. At first. You wanted to protest, to explain about necessity, survival, the system. But the words wouldn't come just as well. What was the point of defending the indefensible? The boy will be worse, you managed. Always are. Each generation learns better tricks. She nodded. They usually are. But sometimes... She paused, studying your ruined face. Sometimes the wheel breaks. Sometimes someone remembers why it mattered. You left your tipstaff on her table, the symbol of authority you could no longer wield. She'd sell it, probably. Every penny mattered when you lived on the edge. The walk home took hours, every tavern called out, not for inspection, but for oblivion. You'd spent 3 years drowning others. Now you wanted to drown yourself, but you made it home, one last time. Your mother was waiting and had prepared a meal. Good stew, fresh bread, your favourite. She knew. Somehow, mothers always know. I'm proud of you, she said, words like knives. Your father would be too. You ate in silence, tasted nothing. Later, in your room, you wrote the final report, not for the guild, for yourself. A confession in Latin, the language of lies made true. Here endeth the service of one who served poorly, who chose survival over honour, who learned that leather sticks to more than wood. It sticks to conscience, to soul, to the memory of a father who believed integrity mattered. May the next man fail better. Retired ale conners were supposed to enjoy comfortable lives on guild pensions. Their years of service would be rewarded with respect and security. They'd become elder statesmen of the brewing trade, their wisdom sought, their experience valued. The guild took care of its own. In the great chain of being, every link had its place. even broken ones. But there was no pension. There never had been. Edmund hadn't mentioned that during training. November 1342. Your hands shook too badly to hold a spoon. Your liver had swollen until breathing hurt. Your eyes, yellowed like old parchment, saw the world through failing light. But you were only 23. Your body had aged 40 years in 3. The guild sent a letter, brief, formal, thanking you for service, wishing you well, reminding you that official secrets remained secret, on pain of... They didn't need to finish. You knew the penalties. Your mother tried to understand. Your sisters whispered when they thought you couldn't hear. The money had stopped. The pantry emptied. Winter was coming, and you'd become another mouth that couldn't feed itself. You tried other work, but who hires a man with shaking hands? Who trusts someone who reeks of ale at dawn? Your reputation preceded you. Everyone knew what Ale Connors were, what they did, what they became. December brought the first seizure. Full-body convulsions that left you soiled and ashamed. Your mother cleaned you like a baby, weeping silently. You'd reversed the natural order, the son becoming infant again, helpless and mewling. You sold things. Your Goodwool tunic first, then your leather jerkin, the symbol of office now worth only what hide could bring. Your tipstaff went to a merchant who thought it decorative. Each sale bought a few more days, a little more bread. But you kept one thing, a cup. Your father's cup. The one he'd used to teach you. Pewter. Well made. Honest. You drink water from it. Just water now. Your body finally rejecting what had sustained and destroyed it. The water tasted like memory, like that clean rain on the day he died, like promises you couldn't keep. January. You heard about Edmund, dead in an alley off Cheapside, choked on his own vomit, frozen in the position he'd fallen. They found 17 shillings in his purse, a fortune for a corpse. Nobody claimed the body. The guild didn't acknowledge him. 23 years of service. That's what it bought. An unmarked grave and 17 shillings nobody would spend. February brought William to your door, your replacement. He looked older already, harder. The work was aging him the way it had aged you. He brought a small purse, guilt money, conscience coins. From the guild, he lied. You both knew it was from him. Professional courtesy. You should have refused. Pride, dignity, some last stand, but your mother needed medicine. Your sisters needed food, so you took it, hating him and yourself and the system that made beggars of its broken tools. The widow Margaret, he said as he left, she asks after you, says to tell you the wheel broke. You didn't understand, wouldn't until later. March came with unusual warmth. False spring, they called it. You felt strong enough to walk, to see London again. Your hands still shook, your liver still screamed, but something, stubbornness, maybe, or just the human need to move, drove you out. The streets looked different from the bottom. As a Connor, you'd walked with authority, purpose, fear. Now you shuffled like any broken drunk, invisible to all but others like yourself, and there were many, so many, former soldiers, failed merchants, displaced farmers, and yes, former Connors. You recognized 2, maybe 3, by their shaking hands and yellowed eyes. Professional courtesy kept you from acknowledging each other. Some shames were too heavy to share. You found yourself in Southwark, Margaret Street. Her ale stake still hung out, defiant and straight. She let you in without words, poured water, just water, so into cups, good cups, clean. You sat at her kitchen table, the one where Edmund had taught you corruption, and drank in silence. Finally, she spoke. William came last week for inspection. You waited. The water tasted clean in your father's cup. I offered him nothing. Not a penny. Told him the ale speaks for itself. Your hands shook slightly, spilling drops on scarred wood. And he passed it, said the quality was good, wrote his report and left. He'll learn, you said. They always do. The guild will teach him. Maybe. Margaret refilled your cup. Or maybe he remembers you. What you became, what it cost. Maybe that's enough. You wanted to believe her. But 3 years had taught you better. The system was older than any one man. Stronger. It would bend William as it had bent you. Edmund. Countless others. The wheel would turn. But still. He'd passed her without payment. Once. You finished your water. Rose on unsteady legs. There was nothing more to say. But at the door, Margaret stopped you. Your father's brewery. It's empty. Has been since he died. You nodded. You'd walked past it countless times, averting your eyes. Thought you should know, in case. She didn't finish. Didn't need to. The walk to your father's brewery took the rest of your strength. The building stood empty, dusty, but intact. The copper kettles were gone. Sold. Probably to pay debts. But the bones remained. The mash tun, the cooling troughs. The smell of old grain and older dreams. You sat where your father had taught you, where integrity had seemed possible and compromise unthinkable. Your hands shook as you lifted his cup to your lips one last time. The water tasted like rain, like promises, like the clean thing you'd forgotten existed. You closed your eyes, and for the first time in 3 years, you tasted something true. The Ale Connor position was real. Established by the Assize of Ale in 1267, it persisted for centuries. Long after serving any purpose beyond revenue extraction and control, the leather breeches test, also real. Historians debate its effectiveness. But it was written into guild regulations, taught to Connors, cited in reports. Whether it worked mattered less than whether people believed it worked. That's how control functions, not through effectiveness, but through belief that someone, somewhere, maintained standards. Guild corruption wasn't unique to brewing. Every medieval trade developed similar systems. Monopolies disguised as quality control, bribes labelled as dues, competition crushed in the name of standards. The Connors were just one arm of a many-tentacled beast that fed on the desperate. What happened to Ale Connors? Some quit early, walking away before the work could claim them. Some drank themselves to death. Occupational hazard becoming certainty. Most stayed. Did the job for decades. Became Edmunds, trained the next Williams. A few tried reform, we don't remember their names. The guild made sure of that. The women they regulated, the alewives, suffered most. Systematically pushed out over 2 centuries as guild monopolies strengthened into law. By the Renaissance, brewing had become men's work. Men had the power to make it so. Those pointed hats in witch imagery, often brewing markers, those cauldrons, brewing kettles. Some accused witches started as brewers who wouldn't comply. The same system that employed Ale Connors helped create the witch hunts. A straight line from economic to social control, from crushing competition to crushing women who dared compete. London's ale quality actually worsened as inspection became entrenched. The paradox of corrupted oversight, it's worse than no oversight at all. Without inspectors, people rely on reputation, taste, market forces. With corrupted inspectors, people trust the seal, never knowing it was bought. Continental hopped beer eventually won because it was simply better, more stable, cleaner, safer. English guilds fought the change for decades, protecting their inferior product through regulation. They lost eventually, but for generations, people drank substandard ale while men in leather jerkins certified it acceptable for a fee. The Thames water the ale protected against, it got worse, not better. By Victorian times, the Thames was so polluted that cholera epidemics became routine. The mild alcohol that once made ale safer than water couldn't compete with industrial contamination. Progress. The leather breeches test was officially abolished in the 19th century, though it had stopped meaning anything long before. The last ale Connors were ceremonial, vestigial remains of a broken system. They held titles for jobs nobody did, for standards nobody maintained, for ideals nobody believed. Some drank themselves to death anyway. Habit outlasts purpose, your father's dream of honourable work. It died 300 years before anyone admitted that honour and employment were rarely compatible. Your personal compromise died the day you first sat on a stranger's bench and let your conscience unstick from principle. But between those deaths, the dreams and yours, thousands of small betrayals accumulated, each one seeming necessary, each one adding weight, until you couldn't carry it anymore, until your hands shook too badly to hold the cup. Your benefits package as a medieval ale Connor: chronic liver disease with complementary full-body tremors, advanced alcoholism, moral flexibility training, dental plan consisting of teeth rotting from constant ale exposure, vision package featuring yellowed eyes and diminished sight, pension fund of die young and broken, social life of a disease everyone can catch but nobody wants, professional network of other dying drunks who won't acknowledge you, retirement community and an unmarked pauper's grave, legacy of teaching the next generation to fail the same way. Someone always pays the tab. Usually, it's everyone. In desperate faces, in coins on tables, in children watching their mothers fail inspection, in drunk Latin reports, in graves you can't visit, in promises you couldn't keep, in integrity dissolved like sugar in bad ale. The ale Connors are gone. The system that created them persists. Different names, different clothes, same corruption. Every generation thinks it's discovered oversight, regulation, standards. Every generation learns what you learned. The test isn't whether ale sticks to leather, it's whether conscience sticks to anything at all. Your father taught you to care about quality when nobody was watching. Edmund taught you that somebody's always watching and counting your bribes. Both were right. That's what makes it tragedy. Sleep now. The taverns are closed. The ale stakes are drawn in. The inspections are over. Let the weight of centuries fade into the sound of the Thames flowing past, of rain on cobblestones, of promises made and broken and made again. Tomorrow, someone else will hold the cup. Test the ale, make the choice. The accounts are settled, and the ale is finally gone. Rest now, the story's told, and somewhere, in an empty brewery, a father's ghost tastes clean water and forgives.